All right, everyone, we have good news and bad news. The good news is, if what I'm reading is correct, Count Dankula doesn't actually have to go to prison. The bad news is that he has to pay like an 800-pound fine. I'm not sure exactly what the pound-to-dollar ratio is, but it's not a huge amount. He must have spent far more on his legal counsel by now and on everything else. Travel to and from the courthouse. It's like gasoline, it costs money. But here's the real thing. In not getting jail time, it's like, well, you're still in the UK, so apparently you're still in a thought prison, which is, by the way, far more effective than a prison with bars. If you can control what people can communicate with one another, what they're allowed to believe in, what they feel, subconsciously even comfortable expressing or thinking, you basically made a slave. Count Dankula, who resists that, of course, if a state wants to control its citizens' minds, it has to have significant legal repercussions for anyone who steps out of line. It's like sort of a 1984 thing. It's like re-education camps in literal dystopia. If you can prevent a person, it's like if you look at anthropology, you need to understand this. If you look into anthropology, there are certain groups in the world that don't have, for instance, color schemes. They don't label color the same way we do. There are certain primitive tribes, and that's what they are, sad to say, that look at something and they'll tell you it's wet or dry, depending on whether it's very shiny and looks wet or not. Essentially, that's how they see color. They don't have a word for red. They don't have a word for blue. So if you try to speak with them about color, about painting or compositions or something in the Western sense, they're not going to know what the fuck you're talking about. And if they're trying to describe it to you, you're not really going to understand it either. There's no translation between the two because of a lack of labels in the sense we have them for certain colors. It's an anthropological, an aspect of linguistic anthropology. Therefore, it's important for the UK, which is a police state, to try to control what its citizens can say and do, especially online, because of mass communication. If you're making a joke about Nazi pug, and you're saying, well, Hitler and the pug does its little pug salute. You can't have that happening because people then, the state is worried that despite the fact that this obviously wasn't the intent of Count Dankula, what they're worried about is that this goes viral, people find it funny, and they're like, oh, haha, it's a cute thing, a pug, it's generally agreed upon to be a cute, or some people think they're hideous. I lean towards the cute side, cute animal, and it's doing like this funny Nazi thing. So yeah, haha, Nazis are funny. They're basically making a conscious connection in their brain. Essentially, what they're seeking to avoid is that people will become desensitized, I guess, towards Nazi ideology because of, a joke that was meant to be largely just an inside joke with his girlfriend. Which is preposterous. I mean, Dankula is obviously not, he seems to be more of a left libertarian than anything. Look at his fucking username, Dankula. What do you think he's talking about? Yes, I'm sure he's going to become a total skinhead. We're going to find him marching down the streets like Oswald Mosley any day now, only with a Scottish accent. It's not going to happen, dude. But yeah, he's already in prison. It's called Scotland. He's got a problem now where he's got to pay this money. And they've dragged his name through the gutter. But you got to understand one thing that works definitely in his favor. Count Dankula has many times more of an audience than he would have if this hadn't happened. Most people who know of him only know of him as either he's that secret Nazi, but they're still looking at his material, or they like him because they're like, oh, he's a victim of the abuse of a totalitarian state. We've got to side with him. He's got people who have very little in common with his political ideology, or his social ideology, I should say. So I think primarily he does funny things, not like outright political commentary. He's got a lot of people who probably don't even agree with him much backing him. That includes people on the far right. At this point, it probably involves a lot of people who are total social justice warriors. And they're like, oh, I think this one takes it a little bit too far because this was meant to be a joke. It wasn't even meant for mainly public consumption. It was basically him pissing his girlfriend off for the benefit of a few people that happened to find it funny. I thought that the fact that he got put on trial in the first place and could have served time in prison for this it's ridiculous. What's Scotland thinking? What's the UK thinking? I don't understand people on the other side of the pond. How did you get to... It's no wonder that we fought a revolution to get away from these sort of ideologies. It's like when people are total Europhiles, but they're here in the Americas, it's like, what are you smoking, dude? Doesn't make any sense. Look at what Europe has done to itself. I don't really want to emulate that. No, I think I prefer a different ideology. I think I'll stick with the more libertarian side of everything. I'll take 9 parts libertarianism and 1 part, we can talk about. But yeah, definitely. The UK and all these countries, it's nuts. And this shows, just because the UK is going to leave the EU doesn't mean it stops being a police state. It just means that it starts being a sovereign police state. So it'll be a little bit like Syria under Assad as opposed to if it were Syria under ISIS. Okay, maybe the most mild of improvements, but it's still authoritarian in form. It's still authoritarian in nature with a largely, it seems, unrepresentative style of governance. You've still got a monarchy, which is hilarious. What's trending right now? They're going to have another royal baby. She's going to squeeze out another child. Okay, over here, it's like, oh yeah, Trump just knocked Melania up again. It's going to be a White House baby. It'd be very funny. Okay, quite charming, but does it affect anybody? No, not really. But Count Dankula's tale affects people, and he's not trending. I find that funny, supposedly. People in Europe, they like to talk about it in Western Europe. Oh, we're so much better. We're so much more enlightened than those Americans. Look at what's trending right now, within the UK. Everyone's going to talk about the new royal baby. Nobody's going to talk about how one of your fellow citizens up in Scotland was totally mistreated by the state up there. He was labeled a Nazi. He was labeled a bigot. He was dragged. His name was dragged through the mud. He was totally mistreated, and now he has the justification of having to pay the state. The state should pay him. They should give him £10,000 for wasting his time. That's what should happen. He should seek restitution from them. He should send them a strongly worded letter and say, you forced me to, I had to go through court and waste my time. I could have been making YouTube videos, you idiot. When did they stop eating haggis and they started eating their own shit? Because they've got shit for brains, it seems, within the Scottish legal system. It's funny. If this had happened over here, the worst thing that can happen to you if someone's like, oh, I'm a Nazi, okay, maybe there are vigilantes, they try to get you deplatformed or kicked off your job, or they just harass you or threaten your life or something. Over there, you can actually be jailed for being offensive. He wasn't even trying to be offensive. He was trying to piss off his girlfriend. And he gets totally fucked over by the state. And just think, there are people who want to have that kind of system over here. What we are looking at here, where someone is satirizing hate and gets fined anyway after 2 fucking years, could have faced years in prison. That's exactly the sort of thing that would happen over here if we adopted the kind of offensive speech should be illegal bullshit laws that some of the worst social justice warriors want. It would be exactly the same, because who ends up getting targeted? Not people that are actually hateful. They're going to keep it to themselves. They're just fine having their little skinhead circle jerk. It's just fine to them. If you tell them, hey, it's illegal to say these things, they'll just meet up in private. They've got an echo chamber anyway. They're going to go drink their shitty imported German beer and shave their heads together and get another swastika tattoo on their leg or something. They won't care. No, people who are open and who like liberty or who like satire, comedians and musicians, they're the ones that get fucked. People who are artistic and intelligent, people who are expressive and creative, and people who just want to be left alone. People who would rather go out and march through the streets with swastika banners, they'll just stop doing that. They'll march around their basement instead. You're never going to throw them in prison. But they'll just keep to themselves. No, instead it'll be Dankula goes to prison. Dankula gets fined. Mulnu gets, Lauren Southern gets detained at a national border for absolutely no reason. The legacy media calls me names. It calls you names. It puts hit pieces out on a whim, because nobody holds it responsible. It's allowed to literally defame people and use only the most spurious of bullshit so-called sources, and doesn't even get in trouble for it. I think it's a farce. It's an absolute farce. How can you call it a legal system? How can you call it a justice system? There's no justice in it. He should get paid by the state. They wasted his fucking time. Totally. Oh, this is going to radicalize people. It's not going to radicalize anyone. A dog, I think people were comparing it to one case, I guess in Nazi Germany, no less, where a dude had taught his dog to do the Sieg Heil salute, and he got thrown in prison or something. He actually got, I guess, put in a concentration camp for a while, and then I guess they let him out because they couldn't prove that he was trying to be disrespectful or something. It was very funny, a strange case from history. I guess it turned out it wasn't illegal to train your dog. So literally in the UK today, it's illegal to do that. It wasn't even illegal to do it in Nazi Germany. Hitler walks by and your dog throws up a salute. Hitler just chuckles and moves on because apparently he liked free speech more than the modern UK government does. I would call that a little bit odd. I would call that problematic. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've just identified the problem of why our founders said, maybe we don't want to be part of a European experiment after all. Maybe we want to be European diaspora that nonetheless we take up a new title. Yeah, thank goodness we're not under the control of the British anymore. That's about all. Peace out.